thank you all for joining. A few weeks ago, I was part of the World Finance Forum with some of you, and we mentioned AI a lot. I think, all use ChatGPT on a daily basis, or more or less. We have some EPM tools that are boosted a bit by AI, but when we actually say, oh, okay, let's implement AI in our daily lives, I had no idea where to start, what it can actually do for us. So we have, in my company, I think we have automated quite a lot of things, and I was wondering what's next. And a few weeks ago, I met Alexis following a chat on LinkedIn, and he actually explained what AI agent can do for us, but like in a very specific way, and very, I mean, now I know what it can do for us, how we can use it, how we can implement it, how we can put it in our lives and collaborate with it. So I think that was a nice way to share this also with you, that Alexis and Peter can actually show us and explain what they told me a few weeks ago. And probably we can also all brainstorm and see what we can do with it, and yeah, what is the value, and yeah, how we can ease our life, I would say, in finance, and ease the life of our team with all the non-added value stuff, to get rid of it, give it to AI, and focus on what is most important to drive the business. So I'll let you, Alexis and Peter, show us what it can do for us.
Yeah, now that's our turn. So just before Peter, you take it on, the point today is it's really to share what we have seen after years on like almost 100 AI projects now within finance, to share like all this experience, the findings, insights, etc. So yeah, it's really like to purely focus on value. Sharing it with you today, and I'm actually really proud and happy to do that with Peter. So, and thanks for Anne-Sophie for this opportunity to share. So Peter, you're on.
Cool. All right. Well, I think I'll kickstart here and kind of just go over a little bit more about what we hear from finance leaders like yourselves. And I think if I can just set the context for this, and Anne-Sophie, you kind of queued it up perfectly because you personally were a part of it. One of the things that Alexis and I do as leaders of Capto is, maybe I'll self-identify. I'm not a great salesperson, but I'm great at just connecting and networking and talking to people. And really, that's what Alexis and I prioritize doing on a daily basis. So Anne-Sophie happen to be a part of what our networking efforts entail. And what that really comes down to is just having frequent one-on-one conversations with finance leaders, completely agnostic to whether they're a client, a partner, an ally, or not. So just to set the stage, Alexis and I are having those conversations upwards of 100 times each per month. And a lot of what we're going to present today is really just the culmination of what we hear from people like yourselves. So hopefully some of this resonates, but we'd also love to learn from you. And then two, what we're doing today is also a big part of what we like to do as an organization, which is just lift up the entire finance department and organization and help provide information to you all and insights to you all, and not be sales guys. So we're here to share more. This is what finance leaders on a repeat basis tell us in these conversations that we have. More so in the best way, the finance department is being more and more viewed as no longer a background organization, but the one that is at the forefront of making decisions, being data owners. There is with that a greater responsibility and more requirements. The only way to meet those requirements and meet those demands is to embrace new technologies, whether that be business insights, artificial intelligence, and automation, which we're going to talk about today. The challenge with embracing those new technologies is exactly as Anne-Sophie stated. For a lot of people, it's difficult to know even where to start. But then once you get into the pool of options, it becomes very deep very quickly. There's a vast universe of individual tools, promises, buzzwords. All these things are impacting the likelihood of just pure and simple success when adopting the new tech. And we'll quote it probably a few times in our conversation today. For those of you that might not have seen it, is very commonly cited that 80 to 90% of AI and automation processes or projects fail or aren't successful. So what Alexis and Capto and myself focus on is those 10% and how do you be in the 10%. And that's some of the framework or some of the things that we'd like to talk about today. The final thing that I'll point out is that what we are learning through our engagements is that this, it's not an adoption and step away from a working solution. It is important to be evolving and maintaining the tech that you bring into your organization. So I think Alexis and the development team pointed out that we put some new processes into production for clients a few weeks ago. That was, believe it or not, actually a 2-year journey with those clients. And it's not to say that ROI wasn't achieved earlier along the way, but it was a multi-stage process and will continue to evolve and continue to develop. So I want to encourage people that are pursuing this to have that mindset of incremental building and incremental strengthening of your AI and automation adoption. That it's not just this kind of like magic flip of a switch situation. So the final thing I'll say here is we're monitoring the chat. We have a relatively smaller, a manageable size group today. So if you have a question or if you want to make sure that we cover something, please make it an interactive experience. Alexis here like on the edge of his seat waiting to talk too. So I'll conclude this kind of kickoff with saying thank you for having us. But Alexis, go ahead if I missed anything in terms of like setting the stage, and Anne-Sophie as well too if I missed anything. Go ahead.
No, nothing missed. It's just to add a detail on actually the example you were giving. Indeed, like one of the first insight that I might share today is basically that like we see on our most successful project that like we start small and sometimes really huge projects, like huge processes and tasks that you have in finance teams. And for example, this case that was like 2 years of continuous improvement started with an early AOI because there was a lot of extraction from systems and things like this that was taking hours because, as maybe some of you know, like some old system lags, bugs, and so it takes you like 2 hours to get some report that should take 10 minutes. So yeah, it was just an add-on on that part, but for me, everything was perfect, Peter.
Cool. All right. I think then we want to make sure that we pause along the way for any questions from the audience and make sure, again, please feel free to leverage the chat if you feel more comfortable in that form. But maybe you want to hop to the next slide, Alexis, because I think it's time for us to get a little bit more tangible about what it means for the actual finance department and the different types of projects that we've seen and experienced success with. So, Capto, just to be clear, is a service provider that builds custom AI automations and agents for our clients. So the experience that we have is primarily focused within the financial department and the financial world. But I would say that we wanted to bring forth these kind of 3 categories of financial AI agents and automation opportunities because they are consistently the things that people like yourselves come to us looking for solutions. I'm making a point never to read off slides when they're presented, so I'll let the slide speak for itself. But the main goals whenever people like yourselves come to us for advice is they're looking for more in-depth, faster, more detailed, and frankly also correct and consistently compliant processes. So these are the things that a successful AI and automation adoption offers. So to state the obvious, you can view this as having basically a 24/7 team member able of processing repeat, or call that mundane tasks, but also having a trained autonomy to make adjustments as needed as it goes to complete those processes. But at the end of the day, this is should be considered an extension of your team that is doing those responsibilities and jobs that are necessary to support your more strategic time and more strategic efforts. But frankly, you would like abstracted from your organization. So these are some of the headlines, but maybe Alexis, do you want to hop in as well with any more details about these specific processes for the finance department? And I think that this could also be a good time if anybody in the audience has maybe a question about what you are thinking could be a candidate for the use of AI and automation in your organization. This could be a good tangent for that as well. Go ahead, Alexis.
Yeah, so for me, like the only thing I would add really is that those terms are sometimes pretty generic. So for example, I see in the middle of the screen automated data entries. It's one that we often get, and it's kind of like the people are asking often, like if there is a system or which system does it work with? And basically, this is the whole point of like tailoring your AI project on automation, and to make it successful is that actually like by being tailored, they work with your system, they learn your system like an employee. That's why we always like often refer to AI employee more than AI agents in a way that like it's more understandable. But except this, I think the best would be your question. So if like, or like you're inside, or like, yeah, I let you, any one of you ask anything if you have something coming up from this slide.
I think for me, the two things I see from what we have discussed is that it can replace the non-value added task, such as extracting one data from a system to load it into another, doing some random check that we do. In finance, we have very standardized tasks, I would say. So this is quite easy, I think, to implement. And also, I think it can also do stuff we don't have time to do, such as adding some controls for detection or segregation of duty checks or any other glitch in the systems, which sometimes we discover by chance, I would say. So for sure, we need to know where to look at. But if we have more time to focus on this kind of controls, thanks to AI agent, maybe we can also delegate them further. So I think that's one of the things where AI agent is bringing more value than just automating stuff as we can do, I would say, in finance, in Excel, because we know how to do it ourselves.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, from my side, like reducing all these manual errors, because we're a company that is really prone to this, especially accounting wise, will create a lot of value, because we lose so much time going back and forth, validating some key numbers. So that will be a game changer.
I totally agree. I don't know if Peter will take I am going first, Peter, but like we had an example a month ago, because when we deploy projects, basically it's another insight. If you deploy an AI on automation project, we do advise to do like parallel runs, meaning like you continue to do it for the time you feel comfortable manually, humanly, on with the AI agent side. And actually what happened a few weeks ago is like actually we caught pretty important error on the public reporting that was about to get out, and we saw that it was like, at least the client contacted us for the error, and when checking, our numbers were logical, and then after when checking, it was actually a human mistake that we caught. So yeah, it's actually, so it is happening, we see it, and it does correct those errors. So yeah, it's a really good point.
Great, thanks, Hermanos. And Alexis, do you want to reveal? So we have, as we stated at the beginning of the call, we actually have a demonstration of
So yeah, do you have any question regarding, before I get on that step, Peter, any question from anyone regarding that use case, or yeah, like.
And how does it work if you have any missing information, or like the system is corrupted, I would say, or you miss something? How does it work? How does it tell the person that I would say used to do the job?
Yeah, it's a good point. So there is multiple part of this question to do a complete answer. The first part is that, like, when we do start a project, so when you do start an AI project on automation, because the goal is like really to help you here. So even if it's not with us, like, do consider that, is to prepare a documentation with all the exceptions that might happen in the process. So like this, you catch from the beginning, like, a lot of exception, like here, to keep that example, the plate number of the car isn't correct. So when the AI agent goes check on the parking system, it doesn't find the plate number of the car. And so then it goes back to the finance team saying, like, oh, on that case, it didn't find the correct information. So there's a plate number, there's a VAT number of the business for the invoice. There's a lot, quite a few information like this that we document at the beginning of the project. Then after, we have kind of like always protocols that, like, a safe trap, which is basically like anything that doesn't work, it sends an email, a summary email to the team. And so, for example, I know that, like, on the when I was checking the results a few weeks ago for that case, we had 27 invoices one day, and like 2 were not working. One because the customer wasn't existing in the system, and the second was because actually the information wasn't like something happened that wasn't planned. And so then it, like, capture it, sends the summary to the finance team that can catch the mistake. And when that happens, and it's a good, like, point about what we were saying at the beginning of the call about, like, those projects that are continuously improved over years or over months, because it's very rare actually that it goes so long. Like, it's actually our longest project that we were referring at the beginning. But from the beginning, it kind of like saved 80% of cases. And so sometimes, like, the art to do is like to be so focused on getting everything sorted from the beginning, but more like focusing on what can be easily done at the beginning. What I often refer to, like, 20% effort saves 80% of the time, and the 20% missing are actually 80% of the work. And we do see that. And so, like, yeah, it already creates by processing let's say 80% of the invoice correctly. The third aspect is that, and that's why we do the parallel run, and that's why we advise you, like, if you do this type of project on your side, to do like a parallel run, because for, like, to stay on that demo, on that case, on that use case, basically, like, at the beginning, we saw some differences between what was reported to us, so the exception that we had planned, that we had programmed, that the AI agent knew, and the things that were actually happening. So we were seeing over, like, 2 weeks, kind of like, I don't know, I think it was 4 to 7 cases where things were different or that we hadn't planned. It was still caught by this safeguard and sent as a summary at the end of the day. But to solve it, we had to teach the AI agent, or what I like to call AI employee, because that's like any employee in the team. When you onboard them, you have to teach them. And so every time they are used to send an invoice, but sometimes there is something very specific about your team, about your business, and then it does it needs to learn. And so we teach it by, like, working together, and that's why this approach of continuous improvement from our point of view, like, is key. Sorry, it took a while to answer, but actually I think it was complete.
Hey, I have a question. Hey, hi, Anshu this side. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Hey, I just want to ask, so going through this, because there have been a couple of, I would say, models like this, but then how do you activate this? So it is like a set of team, for example, the payments team, or you will embed this as a software into their emails, or how does this work? Sorry, it's a very basic question, but just to, I mean, just one, how do you
Yeah.
tap the data basically?
Yeah, no, it's a really good one. It's an important one on many aspects: security, simplicity, deployment, etc. So there is like basically we have 3 ways that we have deployed so far, like AI agents. The first one is like running on the laptop of the user of the team, and so then there is a application to install that's being reviewed by the IT services if there is any. And then after, like, we deploy the AI agent on your laptop, and it does run on your laptop. Then it's really closed. I mean, like, that's really happening only on your laptop, and with any connection for information like FX rate or things like that. That's a common one. The second one is our servers, but it's pretty rare, honestly, because often it's more like the clients that prefer to have it on their servers. And so then it's deployed for ourselves. It's deployed on virtual machine, so it runs on its own virtual machine. And when you connect, we have actually a few clients that actually we realize they spend a lot of time watching the AI agent working. Because like they actually text us and say like, oh, like I'm connecting on a virtual machine and I'm seeing the agent doing this and that, and it's great. Or maybe sometimes they code like something not happening like they want, but it doesn't work on the virtual machine and connect on their system, on your system, like this, and interact via email, or actually via email only when it's on your virtual machine. I think we have only email cases like this, but I'm not sure. Does it respond perfectly to your question, or you have like some more detail?
No, I think this is good. I just was curious, how does it tap onto the data in the first place? Because it would be flowing in from multiple sources and multiple people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, for the data, that's why it's often on the virtual machine on the desktop of the clients, because the data stay on their side. To give you an example, we have a client with very like sensitive data in Luxembourg. They are lawyers and they have a lot of like different clients. So it runs on their side and it needs to be super close. So actually for them, it's running on their laptop. We have another payment client where it's actually running on the virtual machine. Or for this case, for the case I just showed, it's running on the virtual machine, so the data stays there and it stays on the system. So the only time that the data is out of their system is when the AI agent pulls the data from systems, and in between the time that it plugs it back into another system, and then it doesn't keep the data. The only case that it keeps the data is when it's required. An AI agent has the ability to learn from each case, and then when it learns from each case, then we have a safety data holder, which is a JSON file, which stays again on the virtual machine, so it doesn't get out, it doesn't exchange anywhere. On those cases, like the data stays there. I think it's replied actually better to your question than my first part of the answer, right?
Yeah, no, indeed. Thanks.
Pleasure. Any other question before Peter takes the floor back? I think, Peter, it's yours.
Cool. All right. Do you want to help me out with that? Okay. So I mentioned this at the beginning of the call, and this is something that we could make sure that we reference and make clear to everybody as a follow-up. This is not a data point that Capto is presenting. It's a very common one within the AI and automation space. I believe it comes from both McKinsey and MIT and multiple different studies that are citing that 80 to 90% of AI projects are actually failing, or an even higher percentage are not meeting the ROI that they originally set out to meet. So from our perspective, again, we try to focus on being the 10%. And what that stands out, as Alexis pointed out, is starting out with what would be maybe described as the low-hanging fruit, and then continuing to evolve and strengthen the process so that, you know, ROI and success is achieved early on, but then, you know, more and more refinement and more optimization gets us to a state where 100% of the process is handled by this AI, we'll call it employee or AI agent. So I think it's also a perfect kind of match to the question that was just asked in terms of we talk and obviously interact a lot with the IT department of our clients and people that we talk to about AI solutions. And one of the main things that they tell us is that they don't want another SaaS tool in their organization. It adds complexity. It also creates a situation where you're now locked in to a contract, and you're also beholden to the limitations of that SaaS tool that you are therefore adopting. So our encouragement, or where we see AI and automation work, is where, if maybe I could find a better way to say it, but do it the hard way of building it from the ground up. So when it comes to creating an AI and automation project that actually works long-term and sustainable for your organization, we encourage organizations to seek the outlet of building your own. And there's a few different ways to do this. Obviously, Capto is an organization that can support this, but we're not going to overplay our hand for today's presentation. But the other thing that we encourage organizations to consider with this is that in those cases, then you are retaining ownership of your IP or building out your company's IP, and also retaining full ownership of the processes and not handing those over to be effectively kind of like constrained or owned by a SaaS tool that could change or permutate in the future. So the kind of overview that I just went over there aligns with the left-hand side of your screen, that custom fit, not force fit bullet point. But it also extends to the way that we like to think about these AI agents is, as Alexis pointed out a few times, is that they're an employee that you're training over time. So the goal here is to have something that connects to multiple systems, can handle your processes end to end, and has long-term capability rather than just a singular AI agent that handles a small portion of your financial processes. So again, this is where we see a lot of AI and automation projects get held up or not deliver the ROI that they were expected to, is because what gets deployed is really a singular AI agent, so a single part of the process, but not the complete end-to-end AI employee, which should be the holy grail for the financial department. The final thing, I think this has also been touched on a few times now, is that continuous reliability and sustainability. I made the joke in a call the other day that if you've worked in AI and automation, there's kind of three certain things in life: death, taxes, and those automations breaking at some point because there's a change to the process. There is something that just adjusts over time, or there's a need to optimize and evolve it and make it better. So having the understanding, again, that this is not a light switch that you turn on and walk out of the room, but it's something that needs constant support and ongoing improvement and resources over time to evolve it, is also something that's going to put your AI and automation projects into that 10% category and not the 80 to 90% category. So I'll conclude my kind of prepared remarks here by saying this is obviously something that we at Capto focus on as an organization, but is also general advice that we give to any financial leader pursuing AI and automation within their organizations. Again, coming back to this is what makes sense and what we see as being successful for projects. But let me pause there. I want to make sure we obviously give time for any interaction or questions, just to make sure that this is some of the things that can help you be successful with your projects.
I will also add just one thing before any question. It's just like for context, we didn't do proper introduction. I'm one of the co-founders of Capto. And before I was ex-PwC, and I was basically deploying solutions like UiPath, the Prism, Automation Anywhere, and others just citing a few to not like hurt anyone, but I was seeing this point where two things, it was breaking over time, but also like sometimes companies like yours wanted to change the technology because it was outdated or something, and they had to restart from the beginning, because once you change from one software to another, you lose all the technology that was within the software. And that's why we insist on the fact that you get your own IP on the code, because our belief or view or vision is that you should never be thrown back to like the past in a way that you have to restart, to reconfigure, re-teach all your task in the finance team to each technology that you are like potentially changing. However, if you preserve the IP, if you keep the IP on your side, then this is a work that you will never have to do again. And that's to us pretty important. I just wanted to add that before any question, but yeah.
Thank you so much, guys, for the presentation. Ivan here. I would like just to make a question. First of all, I totally agree with you. I think this approach of going bit by bit rather than huge projects is much better, and it grants for sure more success than, I have seen projects of $100K to automate all AI with all finance with AI, and that surely is not going to end well. But here, what I would like to ask you, when you are mentioning about owning your intellectual property of your digital agents, which would be the best platform you think is out there for the finance community to start working on this?
It's a good question. We have tested a few, like we are continuously trying to find the best for the people we are working with. So on our side, we are quite lucky with developers. But internally, like it depends if you have people to actually do like work with you. So if you have like people that are mainly, for example, on Python, because it's quite the language the most distributed and the most advanced, that's what we do. And when you work with that, then after for code, it depends on your level of knowledge and things like that. I have personally like seen projects with Lovable and things like this, doing things that were somewhat like okay. After, I don't want to like tell you too much about that to not to avoid any disappointment, in a way that like it does a big chunk of the work, but it will always need like someone with good knowledge to really make it perfect, to make it like going through the whole task on like really continuous improvement. Because with those systems, those AI supported systems, they basically, the issue is that like at some point they reach a point where they get confused and they don't understand anymore, and so it has really a lot of pain to go for the last mile. So yeah, on that aspect. However, if I had a system that I would have to recommend out there, that there's this one, there's other systems that exist like N8N and others, but those issues have IP issue. If you want your IP, the best is to find like all developers, or like find softwares like Lovable, that's pretty like trendy right now, with additionally like a developer to actually make it happen. But again, I just want to, like, one of the things that I want to leave it out there is that I don't want to recommend it too clearly, just for the fact that you might be disappointed when to do the whole project. And then what I find kind of like on that one of the point of Peter is like other AI agents out there like are often pretty generic, not custom fits. And the issue is that people often are disappointed on things. This is AI not being ready, the technology not being ready, when actually it's not the technology, but it's more like the way to use it and the way to onboard it, to deploy it. And that's my only tweak that I leave out there. But does it respond to your question, and is it helpful? I'm sorry if it isn't as much as you would like.
No, don't worry. I actually totally agree with you. I think N8N is what I have been using a bit more recently, and yeah, I think it gives you a very good MVP, but not something that can be that robust. Yes. So yeah, yeah, I see your point.
Okay, thanks.
I'm not sure if anybody else on the call has heard this, and Alexis and I might be biased because we've worked in the automation space for a number of years now, but there's been this term historically called the citizen developer, which is like the business user that goes off and builds automations or develops AI agents for their organization. And I think that that's, I don't know if I've seen the term used a lot recently, but I think it applies to a resurgence of what you see with different platforms like Lovable or things that make even just Claude for development, giving access to people that aren't engineers or developers by trade to go off and build things that we're identifying here can be successful for these projects. But at the end of the day, you're still talking about people that are not professionals if something does go wrong. So it gets to a certain point where the pendulum swings too far, or maybe the analogy is that they've found themselves too deep into the pool. So you just want to be cautious about putting your processes or projects in the hands entirely of citizen developers or business users. You want to have some professionalism aligned there. Does that maybe help as well as like additional context, Ivan?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I agree with you. I have also been trying some platforms like Base 44 to develop applications and everything. Yes, it gives you the advantage to kind of do something that normally you will require a bit more professionalized training to do. But yeah, I agree. There are many loops that when you start reviewing the model and checking and testing, etc., you're like, how do I do this? I need really a professional full stack developer to work on this. So yeah, I agree with you. It's good for a starting point. I think it's great to have an idea and to give the idea to the professional of what you want, but it's not still to the point that you can rely 100% on the application, on the new technology to develop the agents fully.
Yeah, no, I totally I will add one short thing on this because actually it's a really good insight there. But one of my so in my previous life as well, so I have been like a tech guy, and my team was developers, and basically we were using those citizen-enabled software because they were both licenses by PwC at the time, and actually the finance teams didn't have time or to actually do that aside of their work. They were already pretty busy, and so we were finding that actually tech people were using those citizen-enabled software. So that's one of the reasons as well that created the idea and the vision behind Capto of actually being code that you can own, and that actually developers at the end of the day that have the ability to do it will do anyway. So yeah.
All right. I'm keeping an eye on the clock, and time flies while you're having fun and we're having good conversations, but we want to be cognizant of the time that we have set aside. So I think this is the final slide and final guidance and framework. Again, full transparency, this is something that Capto adopts for a lot of the deployments that we do ourselves personally, but at the same stage, we find that this is a very helpful framework for anybody that's pursuing any level of AI and automation within their organization, and can serve as like a roadmap for you developing it yourself potentially. And again, in the spirit of not reading off PowerPoint slides, we're happy to share these with the group afterwards as well, and we'll distribute the recording as well. But maybe Alexis, you are the expert in terms of project managing these types of things, but it really starts with detailed analysis, followed by blueprinting and documenting, then going off and creating your preliminary agents and what will be the automations that go live, but then having a concierge or a detailed level of support over time within these timeframes is what we found to be appropriate and good targets. And reasonable in terms of delivery, but let me not overstep. Alexis, do you have any more things that you'd like to highlight? Maybe that's things that are especially important along the journey. Go ahead.
No, I think often people that we are working with are surprised because we share, for example, the code and the IP as Romans were highlighting before. And one of my response to that is that basically I think in the future, the code on the IP, as we call the code, isn't where the most of the value stands, but actually like to have this ability and this experience to follow that process on that framework. And so here I think is one of the highlights for the insight of today. But it's basically like if you do go through that type of project, do try to actually see those low-hanging fruits to enable having an ROI over a 12 weeks period, which avoids frustration, help adoption, and actually give you an experience on how it's working quite quickly, on how to make it like work in the long term. Because what we try to avoid is those projects that last forever, and that's why I was basically like talking earlier about this long project that's potentially spend years. You should have already some results, those small results after 6 weeks, and then over the next following 6 weeks, kind of small improvement every day or every week to enable you to see the rhythm and the improvement and to collect more and more ROI, but to already see results and already help you. And that's actually really something possible, whatever anyone says. So I really insist on that one, but yeah, after like, I could talk forever. I will make it short because I know some of you might want to add some things there. So let us know.
One thing I have faced when we implement automation is people say, yeah, but it will replace me at some point. With AI agents and our employees, I think it goes even further. And you need the person that actually manage and master the process to help you to deploy AI employees. So how do you manage this in terms of communication, change of management, etc.?
Yeah, so indeed, it's one thing that we have seen multiple times, as you can imagine. However, we have had like really good experiences, and that's what I was saying on the way that like the different on frankly, one of the first projects of Capto had that issue like quite hugely on it's an error that we identified early, like 4 years ago, and that we corrected from that framework. Is that from the process, the 360 process analysis, we involve the people in the operation, they see what's happening, and they already see the value that they will bring, the value like that the higher value that they will bring to the business. Because on the fail example that we had like 4 years ago, they were not involved until the end. We were kind of left separately, and at the end of the project, like we were brought together, and then the operation was kind of like resisting the change. And from then on, like that's one of feedback I gave to the client, and afterwards all the clients we modified the way we were doing this. And so yeah, it's involving the operation from the beginning, and they often see themselves the higher value that they get afterwards. And otherwise, in terms of change management, technologically, AI agents are much easier to actually like manage in terms of change than any other technology I've deployed over my career. Like it's just,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
That a lot of what we focus on, especially initially with the processes that get put into this stage of analysis, or I think it's represented as a bullet here with the 3 to 4 high impact quick wins. When you focus on that specific or that focused, that targeted of processes, really what you're abstracting or moving away from people is the work that they don't want to do anyway. So in reality, like it's a very, very astute question to ask, Anne-Sophie, and I think something that all organizations should be prepared for entirely and having conversations with their employees about. But I think in reality, when it comes to the projects that we put into deployment, is our goal is to alleviate things that people don't want to do anyway. So that's it. That's the approach, and maybe something that, as you bring this forth to your employees, like being sensitive of those feelings of, hey, am I building something that's going to replace me? No, like you're building something that's going to be, the alternative to us not having the budget to hire somebody else to do this for you. Is I think is kind of maybe the better way to posture and present this, rather than the alternative. Yep.
Okay. And what are the main projects where you have seen the most value? I would say if you can name like 3 projects in finance where you think, okay, like the ROI was actually really there and the team was like the happiest with it.
Yeah, so I think that would be online, that one. I think the one I showed, basically the demo of today, is part of a bigger picture where it manages a lot of different type of invoices. We work with airports in Europe, and one of the things like I realized that like it's small cities, and so they have like a wide range of invoices that are actually the categories of managing, on data collecting, on verification that they are doing because of the invoice containing much more information than the standard usual in other industries invoices. And so then like that was a huge one. We really saved like a lot of time and they are really satisfied. And we see it because they actually cheer us on social network and things like that. So that's actually super cool. The second one is a law firm in Luxembourg that basically we do a compliance reporting for 500 of their clients, and it's like representing almost like double of their team. And they basically told us this year, guys, we need to put safeguards in case something, and it's actually like in case something happens, like we can't actually do the work anymore. Like we don't have the physical mean to do it because you are the agent. So that one like on if I choose between all the others, I'm trying to say finance reporting for a logistic company in the west of Europe, and basically then there is like reporting that are being sent every day with systems that's your project. So in systems, so it was already taking them like every morning, one person every day, extracting the information and then summarizing on reports and sending it to like leaders over like the country's leadership in Europe. And that was like a really huge amount of work. And so, yeah, this one is a big one as well.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think that we're approaching the time that we had set aside for today. And Sophie, from your perspective and the rest of the group, is there anything that we should conclude? I can share just a final concluding remark for everybody. I really like the spirit of this call and how it came together from what I understand, and Sophie, and it's something that we do a lot in parallel ourselves. As I mentioned, Alexis and I at the beginning of the call are constantly just building our network of other financial leaders, and I want that to be a potential open door for anybody who is listening in today to use us as an extension of how you all already come together. Please, if we can be a resource to introduce you to other finance leaders that have gone about these projects and done so successfully in a variety of different ways, that's how Alexis and I can be helpful behind the scenes. But that would be my final kind of offer to the group and value that we can bring to you in exchange. And thank you for your time today, as we know it's a busy end of the year. So thanks a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, so I hope that all of you got the idea, I would say, and what it can bring and how to actually deploy it. That was the point of this meeting, to ask questions and also understand what it can do and how to implement it actually. And yeah, thank you for the presentation and the demo.
Our pleasure.
Thank you. All right, everyone. Have a great day. Have a great rest of your year.
Thank you. Bye.